Good afternoon. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to take part of this panel, Boom Time in Newfoundland, the Modern Gold Rush. I'm CJ, and I'll be serving as moderator for this panel. Before I begin, a quick framework on how we'll structure this conversation. To begin, we'll do a quick introduction from our panelists, their name and the company, and I guess their flagship that they're working on right now. After that, I'll field some high-level topics to see if we can get some dialogue going. And if we have some time left, we'll hammer down into, I guess, more company-specific questions. So to start, the introductions will go by smallest market cap first, which is Jeff at Exploits. Go ahead.
Well, great. Well, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be among the astute panelists here. We're Exploits Discovery. My name is Jeff Swinoga. I'm the CEO. We're probably, as you mentioned, the smallest of market cap, but 30 million market cap, 10 million in cash. We've got a large land position around Newfoundland gold, and you know, we kind of call them Big Brother because they own about 10% of us. And our flagship property is the Bullseye, which we're just currently drilling right now, and we're expecting big things, hopefully.
Very cool. And Tim?
Hi, thanks again, CJ, for inviting me on. My name is Tim Froude. I'm President and CEO of Sokoman Minerals Corp. I guess we'd be one of the senior citizens in this play, having been around since about 2018. So I guess in terms of body of work, yeah, we're probably a little more of a known name than well, with the exception of our neighbor here to the east. But yeah, no, our flagship property is the Moosehead Gold Project. It's a Fosterville type, high-grade orogenic vein type system that we've now drilled pretty much 100,000 meters in total. We're about 80,000 meters into a 100,000 meter program, but that's just a number. We're not going to stop at 100,000. We're just going to keep drilling for the rest of the year. And a new development, I guess I'm allowed to mention, we have a little side order of lithium to talk about if we have time.
Very cool. Denis?
Great. Newfound Gold is a large explorer in Newfoundland where it's a very exciting play, and we've been having a lot of fun. My name is Denis Laviolette. I'm co-founder of the company and president, director right now. Yeah, I think that's...
Okay. So let's start the conversation with what differentiates Newfoundland as a mining jurisdiction compared to the other provinces? Why are you guys so excited about Newfoundland?
Well,
go ahead.
Well, you go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say, like, I'm relatively new to Newfoundland, to be honest, and I just love the people, love the jurisdiction, great infrastructure, and very helpful, very mining friendly. Mm-hmm. In my past career, I've done projects in Africa and Mexico and other places, and I got to say it's a real pleasure to be in the province. And you know, one thing I find is when you're walking along, and they actually go out of the way to help you.
Yeah.
You know, so I even heard a story that. You know, they were moving some mining equipment probably on the western side of the island, and there was almost like a parade because they do want us to create jobs. They do want to have a mining sector that they're proud of and we're proud of as well. So to be a part, to have a contribution to in the whole development of that mining industry, I think we're all really looking forward to that. So.
Well, I'm a native Newfoundlander, so you know, I've got a kind of a vested personal interest here. I was born and raised. In fact, our flagship property, Moosehead, is only about 10 minutes drive from my hometown.
Wow.
So it's come sort of full circle because, as Jeff mentioned, you know, as explorers, we travel the world in search of you know, mineral deposits, and to have this opportunity to do it home, you know, and is quite a blessing. What makes Newfoundland so unique? I think the previously unrecognized significant gold-bearing structures that just cut this island from end to end. And there's not just one, there's several of them. Mm-hmm. And you know, we're finally now just getting the work done that needed to be done in the past to find this. And as well as something else Jeff alluded to was the unique combination of excellent geology and infrastructure. Mm-hmm. I mean, Trans-Canada Highway cuts through my project, through his project, through his project. You know, we're an hour's drive from an assay lab. It's great, and as well as a very supportive government. It's a great place to work.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo some of that, I think, you know, what makes Newfoundland so special for me is, as Tim said, you know, there's just a phenomenal geology. The conditions for exploration are unbelievable for gold mineralization and other metals too. the big thing about our business is that we're treasure hunters. You know, everything we're doing, a lot of the companies here at the show, we're all treasure hunters. We're spending money, we're telling a story, and we're trying to get people engaged in that story and get them excited about finding something new.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about Newfoundland is that there's always been a dogma about Newfoundland that it couldn't possibly host a big, you know, deposit, or gold is small and potty, and you know, and there was all of that's just garbage. It's not true. And pioneers like Tim proved that. They went to new areas in their backyard, quite literally, and found, you know, what likely will end up being, you know, an economic deposit of gold, very high grade. Probably, Tim, what you're easily in the top quartile, if not top quintile of grade projects worldwide. And that was found. And so it's for me, it's the mystique of being able to be anti-dogmatic about and go against the grain and the culture of both the investment side and the geological side, to say this is all garbage, and there's absolutely a chance to find something great. And then, notwithstanding all the things that Jeff mentioned about the people, the community, you couldn't ask for a more, you know, welcoming place to do all of that. But yeah, there's a real thrill about going and hunting for treasure in a place that was perceivably under everyone's nose.
Why is that? You have such great prospectivity, support, but how come no one's ever been in Newfoundland? Well, they have, but not with
That's
this
a great
kind of.
point. And I want to make hats off to Newfound Gold for kicking off the gold rush. You know, it's a relatively new phenomenon, to be honest. So it's only like a couple of years ago that this happened. So that's another thing that's actually happened in the province that maybe others have been more established. So it's really early days of maybe an Abitibi type of belt. So it's great. Sorry, Denis.
No, absolutely. I mean, and actually, I would say hats off to Tim, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had nearly the conviction in possibly stumbling into or finding something incredible. Just having that validation. I mean, like Sokoman was drilling at that time, and we were, you know, putting things together, and it was, you know, that helped a lot, right? That helped a lot to catalyze our early money raising, is to say, hey, look at, you know, you can find new things here. And there's very few jurisdictions in Canada, I'll actually say in any tier 1 mining jurisdiction, where you can genuinely say and genuinely feel like the world is your oyster. There's a limitless potential. There's real discovery, real pure excitement that can be made. And people have walked the ground. To your question, CJ, people have walked the ground, and you know, it's just, there's a complicated confluence of concession-based systems, the Mineral Impost Act, you know, being dominated by big companies with large concessions, to now a claims staking model that mimics other provincial jurisdictions. It was the last province to join Confederation in Canada post the Second World War. There was a lot of things that were different conditionally about Newfoundland, notwithstanding things like the reed lots. You know, you had a large portion of this island where a railroad was put in by a wealthy family, and a huge amount of ground was blocked out as private land in exchange for the railway. And that was a relic and a vestige that lasted up until basically the last cycle. You know?
In fact, just to further on all those points, it was really not until 1980 or so that you could really stake a claim in most of Newfoundland. In fact, the ground that all three of us are now exploring was once part of the concession system that was abolished when the Mining Act was rewritten in around the late 1970s. And coupled with that, of course, was the notion that the only thing you'd ever find in Newfoundland were either VMS deposits. But the clue was there. Most of them all have gold in them. So the gold enrichment was there at the start, but no one really realized it. And as well, a lot of the gold we're finding right now is in belts that would not have been given a lot of attention even when people were here looking for VMS, because we're finding them in sedimentary rocks as opposed to mafic or felsic volcanic rocks and things like that. So, you know, but that's where the most important part of all this in the geology is structure. It doesn't really matter what host rock you have. If you've got a good deep structure, that's the most important element of your gold deposit.
I have a side question for Jeff.
Sure.
Like, speaking of staking, how did you get bullseye? Do you have someone with fast fingers on the team? Like,
Yeah,
that
so
was
it's a
arguably
common
the
question,
hottest piece of
and,
land.
I tried, but
Yeah, I
failed.
think everyone tried for it. How did you guys get it?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and thanks for asking it
Yeah.
because we've had so many questions one-on-one about this, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, we sat down with Kevin Shepard and we said, actually the times are getting very fast in terms of staking, and honestly, we couldn't really do very well in terms of staking claims about a year or so ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the times got so fast. So we just kind of said, within the terms and compliance team, what if we hired a bunch of people to dial at the same time? What if we have a couple people with mouses and keyboards and a Formula One team? And it was all hypothetical questions about how we can do it, because we are, much like my colleagues here, very serious about making impact in the province. And to have others stake outside the province, and not kind of contribute and have the money come back to the province would be unfortunate. So we want to get good. So we practiced and we tried different methodologies, and we did a little test north of us, and we got that claim. And then this bullseye claim come up. We call it bullseye, and we're like, wow, it's just kind of perfect timing as we were peaking with what we were practicing. And we got it. And I got to say, it wasn't the fastest time because so many people were dialing in.
Yeah.
But when we had sort of the wheel turning, and then when we got it, the team exploded in Gander. It was like high fives. It was like winning the lottery.
We called it the
I have a
prospector
sad
lottery.
personal story to attach to this.
Okay. Yeah.
If you go back through the records and check out who actually owned those claims in the past, I owned them personally when I was
like a while ago.
in one of those periods when there was no work and I got to do something, so I staked a few claims here and there.
Yeah.
Couldn't get rid of it for love nor money. Anyway, so there's my fortune lost.
I think that's why geologists hang on to their claims for so long, because they're scared of just exactly this, right? But that's a good story.
You just talked about the collegialness. Like, we're all, we have our own shareholders and some common shareholders, but a lot of people are rooting for us too. So
I think
we
so.
really appreciate that. And I'm rooting for everyone to find more gold and more discoveries like Iceberg, for example, and Tim's lithium. So it's just great to kind of see this all develop.
I think our sector is so small, everyone celebrates everyone else's wins. A huge discovery is good for the entire sector. Since the initial discovery, 2018, 2020, we've seen hundreds of millions of dollars raised for exploration in Newfoundland, but we haven't really seen any other major discoveries. Why do you think that?
Well, it takes time. I mean, clearly, these things sat undiscovered up until 2018 for the most part. Moosehead, we inherited a project from Altius, and since 1990 until we acquired it in 2018, that's almost 3 decades of exploration on there, and there's over 100 historical drill holes on that property.
Yeah.
So it's not like people didn't try. It's just that sometimes it's just a matter of pointing the drill in the right direction. And I mean, I was chasing an untested 9-ounce over half a meter, 200 meters vertically. It was the only hole drilled on the property to that depth. So I mean, there's lots of reasons why things weren't discovered. And at that point in time, Altius had a partner that was a senior mining company. And I guess after a couple of years of poking around and not really getting anything that they could string together in a relative sense of way, they walked away, and the property sat dormant for 15 years. Nothing was done on it.
I think
I poked around. A lot of people don't know that, but we had spent a lot of money, and I poked around privately for nearly 5 years. No, it was 5 years. 5 years of grassroots exploration, prospecting, till sampling, and kind of every geophysical tool under the sun. And we did a lot of work. Like, we sharpened that axe a lot before, and machine learning with gold spot. We sharpened that axe real well before we cut that first tree. Before we drilled that first hole. And it's not to say that we knew that what we were going to get in the first, of course we got lucky in the first hole. There's no doubt about that. We knew we were going to get mineralization, though. That's true. And we didn't know that it was going to be as phenomenal as it was. But that being said, to Tim's point, I think these things take time. And there's another more profound thing. So I've been reflecting a lot on this, is that as an industry, we've gotten horrible at grassroots exploration, because what we call grassroots in a lot of these traditional mining camps are not truly grassroots, or they're closeology things. We're used to having shell companies with, you know, maybe a CEO and a CFO, and you know, going out and hiring a consulting geologist for, you know, 3 months, throwing them on the ground, finding this old, you know, data set and dusting it off, cleaning it up, and, you know, putting some lipstick on it and putting it back out. But actually genuinely going in and doing proper grassroots exploration, assembling a team, going in prospecting, people, it's not part of their toolkit anymore. And so when you had all of this money flock in, and all of these companies and CEOs and whoever coming in and flocking in and snapping up ground, suddenly they were tasked with the work that Tim and I and now Jeff's doing, which is pretty arduous. It's like, you've got to do geochemistry, you've got to take your licks, you've got to hire prospectors and send them scratching in the bush. And that's something that's not really in the toolbox for a lot of these guys that came in.
Actually, if I can add to that, that's an excellent point, because in a way, you know, as a digital renaissance with GPSs and things like that, and, you know, LiDAR and air photos and drones, basically killed old-fashioned boot and hammer exploration. Most the first thing we all did when we acquired the property, we cut a grid, right? We cut a grid, we cut a baseline, 100-meter space lines, and people walked those lines, whether they were in the worst alder beds, the roughest hills, not instead of taking the easy way around and stuff. And now that everything is digital and you can just plot it up in a GPS and point you that way, the straightest way, which may not be the best way or the most profitable way. In other words, you know, don't take the easy road. Go over the hill this time. Go this way that time. That type of exploration has virtually disappeared. And I think discoveries have suffered because of that. Without a question.
And if I could just add to that too, because we're, if you think about a baseball analogy, we're kind of like the first at bat still. It's only been a couple of years, right? So you look at some of the major gold camps, either Nevada or Timmins or other locations, you go, they've been at Abitibi 50 years and they're still finding more gold. So we're still early, but the future's in front of us. It looks really good.
And we aren't just a one-off play either. I mean, you know, I hate to say this, but, you know, Voisey's was basically a one-off, right? There's been a couple of things happen around there, but you know, there's at least 5 companies that are in this play right now. All have an excellent chance, at least 5, of finding an economic gold deposit, not just one.
And we don't know about Buckins. There's very little information about Buckins, right? Buckins was probably the most important gold mine in Canadian history at some point. It was huge.
So why don't you explain to, I guess, the viewers what Buckins is and why it's so significant?
Buckins is close to Tim.
Buckins. I actually, my first summer job was actually based out of Buckins, and the mines were still working. So I actually got underground there, got a few nice samples and things. But Buckins was a world-class VMS deposit that actually produced over 65 million ounces of silver, and was our largest gold producer until Hope Brook came along and barely surpassed it, right? You know, Buckins produced 750,000 ounces of gold. And basically the gold and silver paid for everything. So, and it was it was a medium-sized deposit, 16 million tons. I mean, I would take a discovery of a Buckins any day today. I mean, the net present value of something like that, 23% lead, zinc, copper, plus 104 ounces of silver per ton, and 1.5 grams of gold per ton. I mean, I'll take one of those any day.
But you know, there was a vintage of time with Buckins before that, with the American Smelting and Royalties Corporation that had Buckins, and I believe there was another company too, but American ASR, I believe it was, right?
Sarco,
Sarco had it. And there was a time period where you had a massive company. They owned the town. Like this is not modern times. This is like
1929 the mine opened,
1929 was it? Something like that. And God only knows, you know.
Well, you couldn't just go to Buckins. You had to have a reason. There was a railway in there. And if you were just looking to go to Buckins to have a look around, you weren't allowed on the train. You had to work there, or live there, or be part of the company.
Who owns it now?
It's a thing of legend, you know. There's like, who knows? Like there's reported historic reconciliation of things at some
Yeah.
point in time, and that was later in its life.
Yeah.
Who has
But
it
there's
now?
a period of opacity there.
It's closed. I think it's a closed mine. It closed in 1984 after 50 odd years of production.
Yeah.
And I can't recall exactly who owns the property rights right now, but there was some talk actually of reopening, because again, a lot of things in the old days were high graded.
Yeah. How deep did it go? You know that?
It went down to about 800 meters vertically, I think.
Oh yeah. So
Sheet big.
Yeah.
a lot of potential still there.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine, right? Yeah. So I think Tim mentioned that a lot of people, I guess, are foregoing more traditional prospecting. But what role do you see technology playing in, I guess, future discoveries? Because, deposits are harder to find,
Yeah.
much deeper now and more
Yeah.
complex. So
Well, just more accurately positioning data. I mean, we've all gone through the files from 1950, 60, 70. There was a showing referenced in a report with a crude hand-drawn map. And you go try and find that. It's probably 300 or 400 meters away
Yeah,
from where they show it. So in the same sense that, the technology has basically replaced a lot of early boot and hammer type work in terms of accuracy and, data gathering and things. It's obviously it's very important, but
Yeah, I think in a jurisdiction with like Newfoundland, you've got a lot of your exploration, a lot of your discovery potential has been obscured by till. This is a challenge that a lot of jurisdictions have to contend with, and if you look at places like Nevada, for instance, you get off of the mountain ranges and you're into the pavements and everything becomes covered, and the more modern discoveries and things are made there. But you need new tools to take the lid off of things, so to speak. So geophysics, various remote sensing types of exercise. Geochemistry's come a hell of a long way.
Yeah.
There's so many different cool things you can do with geochemistry now. And just in general, I think technology has, drilling everything, There was a time where, drillers were hand pulling rods, things like this. Drilling through some till could be a problem, could be a big problem. Losing holes, drilling through shales, everything from, we tend to think of like the digital technologies, but there's a lot of mechanical technologies and mixtures that they can additives that they can add to the, to the drill, to the circuit, like the fluids and stuff. That can help cutting and help preserve the competency of holes and get more efficiencies and things out of that. So, we're constantly seeing technology push the limits, and notwithstanding that, some things that may have been a write-off before, some rock types in historic mining environments would have been really just don't touch those. And today it's like, oh yeah, we can do that. No problem at all. We've got the engineering and the capability to handle that. There's all kinds of, the goalposts are moving all the time.
I just had to Denny and Tim saying, because honestly, we're the newest player here, so a lot of the value that they've created, with all the technology they've been employing, we've been sort of seeing what makes them successful, and hopefully applying that to what we have with our land package, right? So we've went through kind of a scorecarding methodology, because we do have a lot of area, so we had to kind of pare those down to see what the pipeline looked like. But it's been tremendous to kind of see the work and value they created, whether it's drones or the geophysical work they've been doing, and just all the data analysis. So we've been very fortunate to have good partners like this to see how they've been successful.
And I think unlike a lot of jurisdictions where everybody keeps their cards close to their chest, they put up fences around their properties and don't want anyone to look in and see. If Jeff or Denny called me up and asked me about something that I'd worked on their ground, 20 years ago, because I've walked over a lot of their ground at one point or another, I'll tell them exactly what I know, because their success will just spin around to all of us. So their success is our success.
Do you think that's a byproduct of how ownership is, or like,
No, it's
because
just
you guys have to give
Newfoundland.
data?
Newfoundland.
It's community.
Because in Nevada, no one gives up any data down there, right?
Yeah, it's just different people.
Yeah.
It's a different vibe.
People guard their data down there with shotguns, right?
Yeah.
I went to a guy's house. We had a little foray into a predecessor to Sokoman. We had a little foray into Nevada down there. We tried to get some data from the guy.
Yeah.
And nope. He said,
Had it in his garage.
he wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah.
Right? Just, no, sorry.
Yeah. So well, since the initial excitement in, I guess, let's say 2020-ish, I think we've seen a little bit of a tapering. What's going to reinvigorate excitement again? Like what's
Him
going to
hitting that
cause
bullseye.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. well,
Big
well, no,
one?
I think the recent success like Iceberg, for example, and Tim with
Yeah.
with his continued success. We're the newest player on the block, and we're hopeful to kind of hit at bullseye. So
Yeah.
we call it bullseye because it's really right in between the action on the Appleton. 1.2 kilometers. We're drilling now. It will take maybe not the first hole, but like the great success that Newfound had in their first hole. But we're going to be continuing to drill all year. And
When can we see some holes?
yeah, so we're on hole number 6 now. 3 have been sent to the for the lab, the local lab, Eastern. We'll hope to get the assays out in the next month or so. And we're going to continue to tell the story. I've been doing a lot of social media because we're kind of in a quiet period now.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we're being responsible on disclosure and things like that. But yeah, no, stay tuned. And I wish. I mean, it's great to see again the recent successes. Like I don't want to keep mentioning Iceberg, but it's just fantastic to see this and Tim's success as well. So I kind of view we're all in together, wanting to build this mining industry. Happy to have a bit of spotlight on us for now. But I know, like anything, Bullseye will hopefully find something, and then we've got another 18 kilometers on the Appleton North too, and as well as Newfound too. So it's going to be good. So just stay tuned.
So you said you had 100,000 meters.
Yes.
Depending on, I guess, what comes out of it. What can we expect from you guys in the near future?
Well, we're drilling now. We currently have 2 rigs spinning on Moosehead.
Yeah.
Targeting an intersection we reported in around Christmas time.
Yeah.
Hole 463, so we called it the 463 zone. It was a surprising intersection. It was one of our thickest intersection, almost 40 meters of 12 grams. Now, obviously, there was high grade, bit of low grade, high grade, low grade kind of mixed in there. So that's kind of been a focus for us right now. And at the same time, we also announced a modest intersection in terms of grade, but 20 meters of just over a gram in what we call the 511 zone. And that's about 400 meters south of our main sort of beehive, if you will.
Yeah.
Great.
And it's completely wide open. I mean, the geological setting of that zone is identical to all of the other zones, except with only a couple of holes in it. We haven't hit the high grade yet. But every other aspect of that 511 zone is there except for the high grade veins.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah,
So,
that'll
as
be
well as other areas on the property. And we're still doing soil samples on this property. I mean,
I don't think people realize how big your property is and how.
well, ours is actually a postage stamp when you compare it to, it wouldn't even show up on an envelope if you use his property scale.
I think.
But it was interesting because I was at a presentation this morning. Congratulations to Marathon. They're actually mining waste rock now around some of the active mines, and there are 3 pits that will form basically the guts of their operation for the next 10 years. Sit on 6 kilometers of strike length. Right, Moosehead is 8 kilometers long. So if you use that, you can easily squeeze 3 or 4 or 5 million ounces of gold onto the property. Forward-looking statement. Okay, that will. So
we're all promoters. So.
But anyway, I mean, it's all about where it is basically, and
Well, I just want to comment, like Denny and Tim are saying, like a lot of these successes you see, like in the future, hopefully, and in the past, is that they take years in the making, right? And so, in these small parcels of land, sometimes can yield a lot of great results, like Marathon. So, it's still early days. Just keep watching, and the story's going to keep developing, in my view, right? So,
well, Marathon is a good example. Sorry, it was discovered in 1986. I had a little role to play in that. 1986.
I think you owned
they're just
the
building
entire
the mine
island at
now.
one point.
Right, 37 years later.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take 37 years at Moosehead, but it can take that long.
And Denny, what's in store for?
I mean, for us, we've got obviously lots of rigs turning. We're spinning on anywhere between sort of 10 and 14 at the moment. Given the day, and I mean, we're fencing off the east side of the Appleton Fault, finishing that off, and then we're fencing off the west side, and target depth that we're exploring is down to about 250 average, we'll say, meters vertical depth. That's that kind of window that we're targeting. And then the game plan is we announced this morning about the seismic survey. This is really cool. We're playing with some new toys that are expensive toys. It's definitely going to be an experiment to some degree. We've done a hell of a lot of homework on our rocks over the last 2 years to tease out and try to ascertain what we're actually going to get out of this and the features that we're looking for to ensure that we have the contrast in that seismic data to get the best out of it. We do. So we're super excited about this. It's going to be a high resolution 3D seismic with the entire north side. And we've got from sort of 300 meters down to 600 meters, 600 meters down to 900 meters, and all of the potential zones that may be discovered throughout that depth profile.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to tease that out and increase the odds, increase the accuracy with that seismic survey. Yeah. We won't see results back on that probably until late Q3, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Late Q2, early Q3, and then we'll be able to start playing with it. But in the meantime, hopefully we've, find more icebergs, keep working on iceberg, other things, fencing off that space, and it's hopefully some more zones fall into the picture.
Cool. So I think that's it for my questions. If anyone else wants to have any closing remarks or any other comments, happy to. We're good?
Well, I wish everybody here success.
Yeah.
And I hope that in a true sense of an iceberg, that only 10% of it is visible, that there's 90% more of that below surface. And also to your point about the seismic and getting down to those depths, I mean, we're both chasing the same model, right?
Yep.
We're both chasing Fosterville.
Yeah, pretty much identical geology.
The jewelry box at Fosterville is 1,200 meters down.
Yep.
We're barely past 300.
If we get to pick this toy, and we can prove it works, then the next customers are probably sitting.
Well, I was going to say with this MT study, like we don't even know if the Appleton's the deepest seated fault, right? Maybe there's multiple faults there, right?
Yeah.
As Tim was talking about. So whether it's the Valentine or others, but there's so much potential there.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe Appleton just kicks off everything. Maybe Dog Bay is the best one, or Grub Line, right? So it's again, it's early days. So the Appleton's been great for everyone. It could be probably a century being drilled out, but there's multiple faults there, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely.
When do you guys think consolidation is going to happen? Like a big boy is probably going to have to.
But he's got the biggest wallet, so
so it's NFG that's going to be doing it, eh?
we do have common shareholders. So
I think it's going to take. I mean, Marathon's ready. Marathon's there. They've had to build it.
Yeah.
Right. So no one took it with what was there. It needed to be built now. So clearly, it needed to be de-risked to that stage. How long does it operate before it gets taken out? I mean, we've seen this before. Lakeshore Gold was a good example.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to operate them for a couple of years, and then you start showing everything's good. And Cisco with the Canadian Malartic, same thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes some of these world-class things have to go to the distance under that junior umbrella, or develop, or you have to take them the distance. And so I think, for me, to see consolidation, I think what you're asking is, when do we see major companies kind of stepping into the scene and maybe consolidating bits and pieces and stuff?
Yeah.
And I think they're just going to need to see a little bit more distance, like more of a bright future. Like, okay, we've got a Marathon, we've got Newfoundland Gold, Sokoman. All right.
Yeah.
There's, let's say, 50 million ounces of potential that we can touch and feel.
Yeah.
In those things combined, and then God knows how much else, and the formulas for discovery are there. Things have been de-risked. Metallurgy's understood. Some, the government's been seasoned, and you've got it's going to take that. I think that it's rare to see the big companies sort of step in on one single, let's say, 3 million ounce mine or something like that. So.
Cool. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we have seen B2 stepping into Matador, for example.
Yeah.
So in terms of strategics coming in.
First one, really.
So just a small add-on is to what Denny was saying, and that's probably going to be kind of like the creep into, like, just kind of maybe taking some toe holes, learning more about the area. Could this be a large district, as Denny was saying? And yes, that's probably how it's going to happen.
Well, we're all still at drilling stage here.
Yeah.
We're not at pre-fees yet, far from it. So
treasure hunting.
Right. So we've got a lot to learn here, and I think it's. People are expecting a resource calculation from many of us. I said the words. In the next month or two, it's not going to happen because we're still trying to understand the deposits. So I think it would be
You ever want to put out one, Tim?
and ahead of the game to put out a resource when you're still trying to understand your deposits. It doesn't make sense to me.
Do you think the new paradigm is not to put out a resource and just keep on drilling it?
Go Great Bear.
Yeah.
Should be.
Okay.
And then you have, of course, tragedies like what happened to Clean Air just recently. They had to redact a very recent 43101 on their PG project in Northern Ontario. So it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
but it happens. I don't want to be that, unfortunate statistic, right?
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Okay, I think we had a good amount of conversation. Thanks again for your time. I know during PDAC you guys must be very, very busy telling
Well, it's
your
good
story.
to sit down for a while. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. I think we're done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.